What's up guys, it's Eric from Rare Candy and welcome back to another Celestial Storm deck profile, and today we're going to be taking a look at Zoroark GX Shiftry GX. And so if you guys actually missed it, we did post a recent testing rounds video showing this deck in action, so if you guys want to see that, I will have a link below in the description for you to check it out. And also, if you guys might be new to this channel or unfamiliar with those testing grounds videos that we post, they usually feature kind of our early, unrefined, rough starting points to begin testing with. So that means there could be a few things in this list we could potentially tweak or improve. So just something to keep in mind as we do go through this early deck profile. But Zoroark GX, Shiftry GX, kind of a weird combination. I think just in general, Shiftry GX is one of the more overlooked cards that came out of Celestial Storm, but I think it actually does have some synergy here. So let's take a look at it and see what this deck might look like. So this is actually probably first and foremost a Zoroark deck. So we are playing 4 copies of Zorua here, and then of course 4 copies of Zoroark GX as well. So Zoroark is kind of our main early game attacker here with Riotous Beating. For just a single DCE, does 20 for every Pokemon you have in play. And we have this amazing ability called Trade. We get discard a card from our hand, draw 2 cards. So just a nice non-supporter based form of draw, and actually really has some synergy with our Shiftry GX that we're going to talk about. So speaking of which, we are playing 3 copies of Seedot and 1 copy of Nuzleaf as well. And I do want to point out we are choosing to play the new ones from Celestial Storm. There are a couple of other ones that are still in format, but I think these are probably the best in terms of their attacks and their HP. So just something I want to point out real quick. But of course, Shiftry GX is kind of the other star of the show here. So Shiftry GX is a new Stage 2, 240 HP GX that we got out of Celestial Storm. Has a couple of cool attacks, but the main one we're really going to focus in on is going to be Extra Sensory. So for a Grass and 2 colorless energy, does 90 plus 90 more if you and your opponent have the same amount of cards in hand, which is a really great number to hit for. We can do 180, which can knock out basic GXs like Tapu Lele, just as an example, or Tapu Bulu, and also a lot of the EXs that are still in format like Volcanion. But also with a choice band, we can knock out most of the Stage 1 GXs and some of the other basic GXs that are a little bit beefier. So we can knock out things like Buzzwole GX, opposing Zoroark GXs, Ultra Necrozma GX, and even without meeting the hand size requirement, with a choice band we can knock out Lycanroc GX as well, which is really big for Zoroark, I think. So this is going to be ideally our mid to late game attacker, since we can start just cleaning up knockouts and taking big one-hit KOs with this thing. And the meeting hand size requirement might seem kind of weird, but we do play actually a number of draw supporters in this deck that will help with that. And we do have Zoroark GX. Remember that we can use Trade to help manipulate our hand size to being the same, so that we can use Extra Sensory. So that is the main attack we're looking at on Shiftry, but it does have a couple of other attacks I will just briefly highlight. The first one, for a single Grass energy, does 40 in Confusion, and then its GX attack for the same attack cost as Extra Sensory. You get to shuffle in one of your opponent's Pokemon, all cards attached to them, back into their deck, which is actually kind of cool. It's actually even a little bit better than Tapu Finis, because you can use this even if your opponent has no bench Pokemon. So you might be able to bench them out with this attack sometimes. But like I said, Extra Sensory is going to be the main attack we're really looking at here. And then even though we're playing 2 of Shiftry GX, we are actually playing one of the old Shiftry all the way back from Steam Siege. It's definitely a card some people may have forgotten about. But the reason I'm playing this one is actually for Extra Sensory. Has the same attack name and is actually pretty similar. So just for a single DCE, does 60 plus 60 more if you and your opponent have the same amount of cards in hand, much like the GX. And the reason we're running this is because it's a single attachment, single prize attacker that can actually knock out Lycanroc GX, which is huge. So Zoroark GX decks in the past have played things like Mew and Mewtwo to help deal with Buzzwole, but I think Lycanroc, in my experience playing Zoroark, has always been the more annoying Pokemon to have to deal with. So the fact that we can easily deal with Lycanroc while only giving up 1 prize in the process is going to be really huge. So definitely a great card for those types of matchups. And speaking of Buzzwole, we are still, of course, running some text to deal with that. We have our Mew EX with that versatile ability. We get to copy any Pokemon's attacks in play. We just need the correct energy to do it. So we can copy Riotous Beating, just as an example, and knock out opposing Buzzwoles. And even though we do have the Mew, we are running 1 copy of Deoxys as well. This is going to be a new Pokemon from Celestial Storm, and it's actually almost identical to the Mewtwo from Evolutions that we currently have, but with a couple of subtle differences. Deoxys only has a 1 retreat cost, while Mewtwo has 2, and it only has 120 HP, whereas Mewtwo has 130. So this is a card I'm honestly just trying out. I'm not sure if I like this better than Mewtwo or not, but I decided to play it just because we do play basic grass energies in this list, so we can potentially retreat Deoxys for just 1 energy and not have to burn a double colorless energy on it. So I'm not sure which I like better yet, so feel free to play around with this, guys. I'm just trying it out for the moment to see how it does. And then just to round out the Pokemon line, 3 copies of Tapu Lele GX. Of course, search out those supporters with Wonder Tag. So speaking of supporters, we have 3 copies of Bridget here, of course, to search out all of our basics and get set up. Search for 3 basics, put them on your bench, or 1 basic EX. And then going on to our other forms of draw support that we have in this deck outside of Zoroark, the first of which is going to be 2 copies of Cynthia. So just a nice stable form of draw support, shuffle in, draw 6. But then we're playing some interesting supporters here to help match hand sizes to fulfill Shiftry's attack requirement. So the first of which is going to be 2 copies of Copycat. This is actually an old card that we are getting reprinted in Celestial Storm. You shuffle your hand into your deck and draw equal to the amount of cards your opponent has in their hand. So not only is this a nice way to match hand sizes to fulfill Shiftry's attack cost, but if your opponent has a massive hand, especially if they are an opposing Zoroark deck, just as an example, sometimes you can shuffle in and get 8, 9, 10 cards sometimes. So just a nice alternative form of shuffle draw in this deck. And then we're also playing 3 copies of Judge as well. So Judge is another one of these cards that we're going to use to meet hand sizes. Both players shuffle in and draw 4. So we can use this to match hand sizes with Shiftry and also with Zoroark decks in particular. I really like Judge just because you can always draw out of the Judge, whereas your opponent might not be able to if they don't have their own Zoroark or something like that. So Judge not only will allow us to meet hand sizes, but it's just in general just a really nice disruptive card and actually better than N in the early game, which is one reason we're actually not playing any copies of N in this list, just because Judge serves kind of a similar function in terms of lowering your opponent's hand size and also has synergy with our Shiftries as well. So that's why we're actually not playing any copies of Judge at all in this list. Or N, I should say. My mistake, guys. So that's going to be it for our draw support, guys. Going on to the rest of the supports, we have 2 copies of Guzma. Of course, just to choose what we want to take knockouts on. 1 copy of Acerola, just to pick up any damaged Pokemon that we have and deny our opponent from taking knockouts. And then 1 copy of Mallow as well. So Mallow is actually pretty nice because Shiftry is a stage 2. So Mallow, you get to search your deck for 2 cards, put them on top of your deck, and we can use trade to draw the 2 cards. So a lot of times you might just be able to go for a Mallow, get Rare Candy, Shiftry GX, and get your stage 2s in play a little bit quicker, or just to get double puzzle, or whatever you might need for the turn. That's going to be it for the supporter line. A lot of the other stuff in the rest of the list is actually going to be pretty familiar if you guys have seen any Zoroark decks in the past. We have 4 copies of Ultra Ball here to search out Pokemon, 4 copies of Puzzle of Time to reuse different cards in our list. So just to briefly recap on Puzzle, if you guys might not be familiar, has 2 different functions. You can play 1, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, or you can play 2 and get any 2 cards out of your discard pile back into your hand. And next up we have 3 copies of Rare Candy just to help get our stage 2s in play and skip that Nuzleaf evolution and go straight to our Shiftries. We have 2 copies of Choice Band, 2 copies of Floatstone just to give ourselves free retreat. We also have 2 copies of Field Blower to discard opposing tool cards in stadiums, especially things like Parallel City, which really hurt these Zoroark variants. 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher just as a form of recovery. We can get Pokemon back into our deck or hand. And then we have, just to round out the trainer cards, 1 copy of Parallel City as well. So this is really nice in mirror matches to limit opposing Zoroark's bench space. Also really good against Malamar, since they are very reliant on a full bench. Now, one thing you actually do have to be careful with Parallel City in this list is it does reduce your own damage if you do have the red side facing you. So it reduces the damage of any Pokemon that's fire, water, or grass, which we do play in this list. So you do have to be careful, but luckily in certain matchups, the damage isn't that relevant, especially if you are going against a deck that plays Lycanroc GX as an example. The damage reduction for the Baby Shiftry doesn't affect its ability to take one-hit knockouts. You just will have to be careful for Shiftry GX. You will be able to still take knockouts on 190 HP basics like Buzzwole or Ultra Necrozma, but you will be 20 short of taking a knockout on Zoroark. So you have to really know when to play this card. But definitely a card I've always enjoyed in Zoroark variants. And then to round out the list, we have, of course, 4 double colorless energy and then 3 grass energy, just to fulfill our Shiftry's attack costs. But yeah, guys, that's going to be the list that we're going to be messing with here. I'm actually been pleasantly surprised by how well this deck has been doing lately. And unlike Golisopod variants of the past, even though you are a little bit clunkier being a stage 2, you actually are a bit stronger. Zoroark can safely two-shot things on its own, but with Shiftry, you actually have a nice Pokemon that can take big one-hit knockouts in the mid to late game. And not only can you do that, but you have an answer to Lycanroc, and with Mew and Deoxys, you have an answer to Buzzwole. So I think it actually covers a lot of the weaknesses that Zoroark has pretty well. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at this deck. Definitely stay tuned for the channel. We're going to have a ton of Celestial Storm content coming over the next several weeks, so definitely stay tuned for all of that. But as usual, feel free to like and subscribe. If you can support this channel by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/rarecandytcg, or by picking up some merchandise from our online store like the Decidueye playmat you saw in this video at rarecandytcg.com, it would mean a lot. But with that, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you for the next one.